Welcome back to the Alliance Gold Digger Podcast. I am your host, Rachael Oyer. Today, we have the unique privilege of hosting Abigail Burle, also known as Abby. Abby is the founder of Love Your Story, encouraging others to find strength, meaning, and purpose in their own experiences, even when life looks different than expected. Abby is a mother of triplets born just 24 weeks, whose journey into motherhood began in the NICU and grew into a life advocacy, resilience, and purpose. After spending 5.5 months watching her children fight to survive, she quickly learned that the challenges did not end at discharge. They only evolved. Over the years, Abby and her family have traveled across the country and internationally to access specialized care, including surgeries and intensive therapies. Through these experiences, she has witnessed the emotional and financial strain families face when navigating complex medical needs, especially when insurance doesn't fully cover the entire cost. Through it all, Abby has embraced a powerful belief: every story is worth honoring. Abby, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachael.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. Who are the Mighty Three and who are all your people?
Right. Like you said, my name is Abby and I'm married to Ryan Burle. We've been married for 13 years. We have triplets that are 8, but turning 9 in May. And we have one girl. Her name is Maggie, and she's our baby A. And then we have 2 boys, Maxwell and Miller. Everybody's fraternal. Everybody is their own identity. And it's a wild time. I tell people I recommend having triplets. It's fun.
It will level set you, I think. All of my experience with triplets have been in this office. Jason, my husband's claim to fame, was doing helmets for triplets, and he would have all 3 of their card carriers. And the mom and dad who brought these kids in were the strongest, most sound mind people I've ever met.
Well, I tell people, I think triplets attract crazy, and crazy enough to be like, we can do this.
Awesome. So in the introduction, we kind of talked about the beginning stages of your kid's life, being born at 24 weeks. If you would kind of dive into how you knew that you were going to need extra care for your kids.
Yeah, I will try to sum that up. So if you've ever had a high-risk pregnancy, or especially what they call high-order multiples, which triplets is the first one of that, of high-order multiple pregnancies, they're very honest in the beginning that you're probably looking at some form of early delivery. And so when I was 22 weeks pregnant with the triplets, I went to a routine appointment and actually found out that I was in labor and did not know.
Oh my gosh.
And so I didn't know, because I was like, well, my back hurts. Whose back doesn't hurt? You know, I'm 22 weeks pregnant with triplets. And so I was immediately put on hospital bed rest. And I honestly did not fully understand at that point in time the gravity of the situation.
Yeah.
I think looking back, that was part of God's protection, that I did not understand the gravity of the situation, being in complete bed rest. But also, too, I look back and know that I experienced a peace and a joy even when laying in the hospital bed. So our hospital back at the time at the Northeast Georgia NICU really wanted the triplets to make it to the 24-week mark before they intervened.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's triplets at 22 weeks. They were barely over a pound. You know, the odds were truly stacked against us. So my body made it actively in and out of labor for 11 days in the hospital. And so at 24 weeks and technically 1 day, I gave birth to the triplets, Maggie, Max, and Miller, and they were all born just over a pound. At that point, in that moment, you kind of are shocked into realizing it's not the journey you're even thinking about. It's, will I even get to meet them? And so in that moment as a parent, I think it's more overwhelming to think, will I even get to hold them, touch them before they pass? And so I look back on our experience, and people ask me all the time, we did not do anything different, but we got to bring all 3 of our babies home, which is a miracle in itself. The odds were 30%, and we brought all 3 home. And so we are the lucky few that have gotten to experience our kids in our own home. Maggie, Max, and Miller all had very different journeys in the NICU. A 1 pound baby obviously cannot do anything on their own, right? They're not making their own blood supply. They're not eating. So there's a lot of interventions that have to happen. I really feel the first milestone where I kind of experienced joy as a mom was the first time I got to hold them. And I tell people all the time, I look back at the NICU, there are highlights. There are joy moments, just like you have joy moments in your motherhood. That was all I knew, right? I didn't have kids before them. And so I got to hold Maggie at day 14 for the first time. I got to hold Miller at day 20 for the first time. And little Max, I got to hold him at day 26 for the first time. But it was my first realization as a mom in this new role where I'm trying to interact with babies and bond with them, that I started to really understand that life, we can plan all we want to, and we can try to have a false sense of control. But when reality is, we don't have any control of life. And when a tragedy hits, what is going to be the dialogue and belief that I believe about myself, that I believe about the babies, that I believe about my marriage, the community around me? What's going to be the dialogue I tell myself? Because I could have lived in telling myself, this is a tragedy. Nobody wants to live my life. Woe is me. When in honesty, some people never even got to experience being pregnant and having a 1 pound baby.
Right.
Some people never got to experience a community coming around them in a tragedy. Some people never got to have hard conversations with their husband of what does this actually look like? What is the value of life? And we can talk all we want to about the value of life, but when you're faced with what is actually the value of life, it takes on a whole new meaning. And so really starting to I hate the word reframe, but really starting to truly understand that we can't control life. And so when I'm handed these situations and we're making hard decisions for our kids, how can I view this as an opportunity versus a woe is me type situation?
Yeah.
So they did, we all got discharged. Maggie technically got discharged at month 5, and the boys got discharged at month 5.5. But it was one of those things I still naively thought, when I come home, I'm just going to have babies to hold. Rachel, I was quickly woken up to the fact that no, I'm still bringing home 3 very medically fragile kids. They just don't need intensive care anymore. And so that's a little bit about our NICU. I mean, obviously, there's so many things that happened down there. But yes, we had a wild first 5.5 months as a family, as a first-time family.
And so not pay honor to the amount of time, because we say 5 months, but it probably felt like 5 years, and the amount of times back and forth. And let's also acknowledge that you birthed these children. So you weren't in your tip-top shape to waddle down to the NICU.
Right.
You eventually come home with 3 medically complex kids, and you realize you need a team. I'm sure you realized you needed a team.
Yes.
Why don't you dive into how you identified people you could have on your team, people I'm sure you chose not to have on your team or kicked off your team. I'm not quite sure. As a mom, we have had that experience as well. And kind of what you built for your family during this season.
Right. That's a great question. I think it's in reality of we're told that when life hands us something, we have the tools to serve ourselves and to rise up to the occasion, when in reality, first as a Christ follower, we're first called to receive a gift that we've never earned. And so I quickly realized we're about to have to receive a ton of gifts that we can never repay. And so my husband and I just laid it all on the line to my family, to the people surrounding us in our church community of we can't do this alone. To the point where I had friends that came to my house, because a lot of people don't know this. At the Northeast Georgia NICU, you have to leave every day. So you can't stay with your babies. And so you have to go home. And I had friends that truly I would text and I'd be like, I physically cannot get myself in the shower. I physically cannot shave my legs. I had friends come over and help me with those little tasks. I think the biggest thing that we did in building community was just be so vulnerable with the amount of help we needed that when someone texted or called, I said yes. When someone called me and said, do you need your grass cut? Yes.
Yeah,
I do. Do y'all need meals? Yes, we do. Here's our door code. Go put it in the freezer. And not feeling like people that I owed them something back. I think that was very important for me with my guilt of being like, oh, I can write them thank you notes and I can call. And it's like this little voice in my head being like, are you crazy? Like,
when?
Yeah. And you have 3 kids on life support. No one's coming to you expecting something in return in this moment.
Right.
And that's hard. We also boldly told anyone who would listen things that we needed. For example, my husband at the time was a high school teacher, and I was going to be looking at obviously staying at home with the situation that we had down in the NICU. How can a family of 5 live off $50,000 a year? I mean, really sit with that.
And medical bills.
Yes, lots of medical bills.
Right.
And so we just started telling anybody who would listen of like, we're looking for free help. And they would say, what does that mean? When the babies come home, I need someone 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. here at my house. We can't pay. And just started saying it as many times as we could. And we ended up getting this call from this woman. My kids call her Gigi. They do not know she's not a blood grandparent. I will never tell them otherwise because she is a blood grandparent in my mind. She called me and she's like, I'm retiring. I don't have grandkids of my own. I heard you need me to come and live on some babies. And so she came to the NICU to get trained and everything. And they came home on a Wednesday. She came over on Thursday. And really the first 2 years of their lives was at our house almost full time, 3 to 4 days a week. People often ask me, how'd you find her? How'd you find her? Because we told people. And I think a lot of people in their tragedy and hard seasons, they don't want to take the first step of being vulnerable to say, I need free help. Like really saying what they need. And I truly believe us saying what we need is why we found her. I mean, that's the only reason I can think of it. A lot of people also don't know this. In the Northeast Georgia NICU, CHOA is different. CHOA allows anyone to visit as long as they have a license. So lots of people can meet your baby if they're down there for 1 week or 9 months. When you're in the Northeast Georgia NICU, 4 people ever, right? 4 can meet your kids. So for us, you were talking about people we had to let go in our community. You quickly learn when you're in a situation if people start making it about themselves or if people are on the team to care for the babies.
Right.
And that's a tough realization to feel like, oh, I thought this person and this person were for us. When in reality, through that season, it was about them.
Right.
And it has strained some of our relationships, some of even our very close relationships, and it's changed our community. But what it has changed for me is knowing actually what true community looks like, that it's not a tit for tat situation. It's truly I'm going to give and I'm not respecting anything in return. And you hope that then I can offer that back to my friend that's going through the next season. So we definitely experienced both for sure.
And it seems like everything you needed was provided for you. And we share a similar faith tradition. And I can say that in my life, even though I didn't have 3 children in the NICU, in my most desperate hour, my needs have been met. And I can say that while people may have been the vehicle that met them, the source was my God.
I mean, we ended up having insane stories. I mean, Gigi was one of them. One of them, somebody called us and was like, we heard that y'all have a car payment.
Oh my gosh.
We want you to sell that car and we're going to give you a van for $1.
That sort of stuff. I know it's your podcast, but like not a lot of people know that we do payment plans here at this clinic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We have angels who have come in and paid payment plans for patients. And we don't promise it to anybody because we don't instruct angels. They come to us.
Right.
But just recently, someone said, hey, I heard, can I do something? I had this prick. Now that you are in that position of the move out and give, I want to get to how you got there in just a second.
Yeah.
but it seems like you and I both know that there are times when you are to receive and times you are to give. How do you know the difference?
Ooh, that's tough. That's a really good question. I think the receiving comes from knowing that what the situation you're being faced with is truly beyond you. Whether that's a cancer diagnosis with your spouse, whether that's your child is going through a new diagnosis, you're going through a divorce, whatever it is, really saying, how would I serve my friend to the left, right? Would I bring them a meal? If you're saying yes, then guess what? You're probably the one in this situation that would need the meal. Like if you're reversing the script, right? If my friend was going through a divorce, would I take her a meal? Yes. Well, I'm going through a divorce. Oh, it's my turn to receive the meal.
Right.
But I think also knowing then when to give is when, this sounds tough, is knowing that when you're in a steady place to give and you're not in a space of, I burned myself out to give to this person and now I'm cycling through that they should have written me a thank you note.
Right.
If that's the dialogue, you might be closer in a season to receive than you are to give.
That's a great answer. Yeah. And if you're doing it for approval, sometimes in the faith tradition we hold, you give so that way you feel good about yourself instead of actually out of the freeness to give.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Now I want to hear about how you got to start this amazing organization, but it evolved through your own personal experiences with your kids. Feel free to catch us up because you're discharged, you have Gigi, car payments are magically getting paid.
Yeah.
Life is just a bed of roses, right, Abby?
Oh, yes, Rachael, a bed of roses. So I'll kind of do a snapshot of when the babies were about 6 months to about year 5, because it's pretty much the same kind of pace. So I'm a very career goal oriented person. I have my master's. I saw myself doing XYZ. So I tell people all the time, if you're a mom listening to this and you found yourself staying at home and that's not what you designed or desired. When I say I laid myself down every day to stay with my kids, I laid myself down to stay with my kids every day because that's what they needed. So from the 6 month to 5 year mark, all 3 of our kids have a chronic lung disease. So we were almost in the ICU PICU with breathing things more than we were at home. All 3 of them had physical therapy, occupational therapy, feeding therapy constantly throughout the week. I know you know Noreen at Tender Ones Therapy Services. I tell people, we were there 8 to 10 hours a week between my 3 kids. That was my second home. And so none of the triplets took a first step until they were past 24 months old. So really the first 2 years was full on therapy. And I truly say this, keeping them alive.
Right.
Truly keeping them alive and honestly keeping myself alive. And so we were able to go through a lot of interventions to help us get the kids safely to stay at home when they were sick. So we have all 3 of our kids have a lifelong diagnosis. Maggie, our daughter, has hypotonia, and she also has a craniosynostosis diagnosis that's led to us having several major brain surgeries in Philadelphia. With an optic nerve atrophy. She's technically legally blind in her right eye. But if you saw her now at 8, she's running and gymnastics and swimming, and you wouldn't know the story that she had, which I tell people all the time is, like most people, we don't know the story that they're carrying.
Correct.
Right. And then my son, Max, he has a physical disability called cerebral palsy. And for those of you who don't know what cerebral palsy is, it's actually not a muscular disorder or a disability. It's a brain disability. So it's how his brain communicates to his muscles. And it does affect all 4 of his limbs and his speech. And he is a wheelchair user. And he loves Legos. And he does a lot of breathing interventions because something I did not realize until I had a child with a physical disability, movement keeps you healthy.
Oh, that's so wild. You're saying that.
I know. So when you have a child with limited mobility, it's very hard to keep them healthy. And so we do BiPAP at night. We do airway clearance vest daily and a bunch of breathing meds. And that interventions have really allowed us, knock on wood, Rachel, to stay out of unplanned hospital stays for the past 18 months.
That's good news.
Which has been a miracle. And then my son, Miller, he is autistic. And I tell people, and he's hyperverbal, which a lot of people don't realize in the autism community is a thing. So he is repeating movie lines all the time. He is your party starter, a squirrel in a blender during a rave. He's a great time when he's not your own child. I'm just kidding. But yeah, he's wild. He's wild. So all three of them have truly had a distinct journey, which has led us to kind of where we are today in the sense of I'm not wearing one hat as an advocate. I'm wearing for my daughter, who's more of the medical surgery. I'm wearing a hat for my son, Max, that, intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities. And then I'm wearing my hat for an invisible disability where people really more look to me and like, why aren't you parenting that kid? And you're like, well, he has an indivisible disability. We are parenting him. And so we have truly been, Rachel, all over the country and out of the country for care for our kids. And through that process, I'm sure a lot of moms can relate. I was completely alone. I was alone with an 18-month-old that didn't have head control in a hotel room for 3 weeks by myself because somebody has to stay back and work and make money, which is my husband. My parents would watch the other two or whoever I was with. And I found myself coming back after our first trip. So we went to Toronto, Canada at that point for the first 3 weeks. And it was for a special therapy called DMI, which we don't have time to really talk about, but I found myself being in a hotel room completely alone. And I came home and I was crying to my mentor at the time. Her name's Beverly Filson. And I was like, I know I'm doing what's best for my child, but I'm not doing what's best for me. I mentally have nothing left to give, emotionally, spiritually. My marriage is in shambles. Our finances are in shambles. I can't do this. I can't do one more trip with my kid. And that is when she looked at me and she goes, you thrive in community. How can you go do this trip next time and make it in community? And so I did what any good mom does. I went to Instagram.
Smart.
And I DM'd a mom that I had never met before from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And she had a child with cerebral palsy. And I had remembered that we had crossed over in the clinic in Canada for 1 week of our stay. And I said, hey, we're going back to Canada in 6 months. This is the week we're going. Would you want to share an Airbnb? And she said yes. And that one yes, I'm going to try not to cry, completely changed my life. And it changed my life in the sense of I fully realized for the first time I was not alone with someone who actually understood and lived the day-to-day grind of, because my child isn't a burden, but the finances and the travel and the medical and the decisions that come along with it, it feels like a burden sometimes. And I experienced, she would cook a meal, then I would cook a meal. She would clean up dinner, then I would clean up dinner. I would go for a walk without my kid because she knew how to work an airway clearance vest because her kid wore airway clearance vest. And that's where it kind of brings us to present day. I'll kind of pause for a minute and let you ask her questions or anything. But that's where it kind of gets us to present day of, okay, I've experienced community for myself. How can I go do this for other people?
No, I think it goes back to what we talked about at the top. How do you know if you're supposed to give or receive? And you got into a position where you realized there's a need here. And you personally found a way to find it for yourself. And now you want to create it for others. So talk about how you give community through Love Your Story.
Well, and Rachel, you said it kind of like selfishly started out for me in the sense of like, I need to receive community. Like I'm drowning. I'm not going to make it. And then realizing, oh, this mom needs to receive it too. Well, if we both need to receive it, then I bet when we're together, we're also giving.
Right.
So yeah, fast forward to our actual community here in Hall County, which is what I call home. I was at Tender Ones Therapy Services in Gainesville, Georgia, and we were coming off a Texas trip with one of our kids to receive medical treatment. And I sat down in the waiting room and a mom, her name was Alicia, and I started striking up a conversation and I said, where are you from? And she said, I'm from Arkansas. And I said, what are you doing in Gainesville, Georgia? She said, this is the closest clinic that accepts my insurance. And I looked at her, and this light bulb moment went off for me of absolutely not. No one in my community, in my personal community, is going to feel the way I have felt traveling around this country. I don't know what I'm going to do, but we're going to do something. Now, mind you, I have triplets who are not in school, and we're still doing all the hospital things, you know? And so I went home and told my husband, and I was like, I don't know what this looks like, but we got to do something. And he's like, Abby, we live off $50,000 a year. Like, what are we going to do in helping this family? And I was like, but we know people who do have money, and we know people who are generous with their time. I think we can go do something. And so what started out is I just put on my personal social media. I was like, Gainesville, Georgia is my home clinic. Like, Gainesville, Georgia is my hometown. If you are traveling to Gainesville, Georgia, I want to help you find a place to stay. And that's how it started. And it started in random people's basements, our spare bedroom, my parents' house. And we did that for over 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, Beverly Filson, the same woman that I said before, she looked at me and she said, do you realize you're running a business? And I said, what? And she said, helping people find free housing. And I said, no, Beverly, I'm just helping people because I know how they feel. And she said, okay, well, when you're ready to write a business plan, you let me know. And I kind of came back to her a month later and I said, I think I want to write a business plan. And she said, okay, help me write a business plan. We ended up finding an investor. This was not a nonprofit at this point. This was just meeting a need. We found an investor who was in the real estate business, and he said, okay, I'll buy you a house and you guarantee me renters. That's how the conversation started. And I said, oh, okay, I can do that. And I said, well, how will the payment work? Because I've been like asking people for $100 here, $200 there, you know, pairing up with Airbnbs that would give us a free week or something. And he goes, well, have you ever thought about starting a nonprofit? I said, oh, no. No. That's not what this is, you know? Right. And he goes, sounds like what this is. And I said, I really don't think I have the margin to start a nonprofit. I'm just really just trying to do this under the radar. He said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll buy you this house. I'll give you 6 months, no rent. That'll give you 6 months to go. This is how much I'm going to charge you moving forward. I'll give you 6 months to go collect some money. And so I went to our church and I said, I need a fiscal sponsor so that when people give, they can get a tax write-off. Right. And our church was like, oh, yeah, we could do this for you. I was like, okay, great. They're like, how much do you think you need to raise? I was like, I need to raise $30,000 in a year to pay for rent, liability, you know, all this stuff. And they're like, oh, yeah. So I just start calling people in my phone. Like, hey, would you give $200? Would you give $100? This is what we're doing, you know. And people had kind of been following on my personal social media and kind of knew what we were helping do. And the church called me probably at month 3. And they said, hey, we got a little bit of a situation. And I was like, what? They're like, do you know how much money you've raised? I said, I have no idea. I hope it's close to 30,000. And he goes, you've raised $98,000. And wow. I said, wait, what? And he said, $98,000. And that's when one of the pastors at church was like, have you ever thought about starting a nonprofit? And I was like, oh my gosh, with this again, you know? And I finally just had people that loved me. There were 5 people. They came around me. They literally basically sat me down and they said, you're not seeing what we're seeing. We're not asking you to do this by yourself. Let us help you start a nonprofit. Let us help you do this for real. So in 2022, Love Your Story was born. We had been obviously doing it for about 2 years prior to that. But
during COVID.
Yes, during COVID.
Right.
Yes.
Complicated. For sure.
Complicated. And I have my own mental health journey of my own that we could have a whole podcast about. And I didn't know if I was in a space to do this. And that's when those 5 people were just like, but nobody's asking anything of you. And I'm like, but everybody's asking things of me. No, they're not. Families just need an open door of a place to stay. And Molly's house was born. That's what we call the house. So it's a free 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. On April 1st, so in 2 weeks, we will have hosted our 100th family.
That's awesome.
Yeah, representing 16 different states. It's wild.
So
that was a lot.
No, it was not. It's actually really beautiful that you tried it before you bought it.
We did.
And then now you're here. Mm-hmm. You run a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of sounds unwillingly at first, and now willingly. I'm thinking willingly.
It was unwillingly, and this did not become my job until 18 months ago.
Really?
Yes. So even for the first like 2.5 years that we were a nonprofit, it truly was a community-wide effort to do what we were doing with the families. And then we got to a point where it was like, okay, somebody's got to kind of take the bull by the horns and do this thing. And my kids were at a health space where I felt like I had the capacity to do it. And so I have now done this full time for the past 18 months.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun.
I'm sure some of the uptick in the growth of it has been because of the investment of time you've been able to give it. And
yes.
I know that comes with a large plate that you probably have to decide what stays on and what gets off all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered when you started more in this past 18 months,
mm-hmm.
what is the number one lesson you would be willing to share with maybe somebody who's considering doing something that they're not quite sure if they can make it work?
Mm-hmm. My number one piece of advice for you is do not go it alone. Start with a collaborative mission. Start with a community that is surrounding you. An example of that could be, let's say you want to start a food pantry in your neighborhood. Go meet with other food pantries. Find out what they're doing, because you might not have to start your own thing. You might could come alongside of theirs and expand it. We were in a position where truly nobody was meeting this need.
Right.
But the collaborative in the community, I look back at myself over really these past 8 years, and that is what my triplets have taught us. That's what starting a nonprofit has taught me, that when the work is good, people want to help.
True.
There's no amount of convincing that needs to happen. I didn't have to sit down in a room and pitch something. Everyone was like, absolutely, people need a place to stay. Why isn't our community doing this? And so when people can actually have a space to come around you or come around what is your vision, they buy in, and they buy in when they have a role. So collaborative and community, don't start it by yourself.
That's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to talk about this 100.
Yeah.
You guys are doing something special.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for you to do not even an advertisement, because the work is good. You don't have to pitch us.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening inside the community right now?
Yeah, that's awesome. So we are about to host the Barquas family. They're our 100th family. They have a daughter with Down syndrome. Her name's Bella Rose. And they're coming the first week of April, and they're going to be staying with us for 3 weeks. And remind you, it's completely free housing. We actually last year also now do, thanks to Hopewell Farms, we offer free organic meat and eggs every week to the families. And then we also provide them 2 to 3 meals a week in community. So we don't just drop off the meal. They eat in community with people. And so what we're doing to celebrate our 100th family is we're having a 100th birthday party. And we have partnered with some of our very loyal donors, Judy and Larry Glover, and they have done a match campaign. So they have said, we will give $10,000 for the first 100 families if you can get 100 people to give $100. And so this campaign is going till June 4th, is how long we're doing the campaign for. And it's matched. So this will match us for $20,000. A lot of people ask, what would $20,000 do for Love Your Story? It actually would cover an entire quarter of hosting families, which is hosting about 8 to 10 families in a quarter, which is what we do. And so it really puts a dent in our program for Molly's House. And it's exciting work. And these families, honestly, who have traveled all over the country like us, when they come here to Gainesville, they cannot believe the generous community that we live in.
Oh, I agree.
It blows them away. It literally blows them away of when they hear our story, how people have come around us. And then those people are then coming around them. Mm-hmm. The same people that came around us in the NICU are now coming around other families. I mean, I get chills, and it's, man, that is powerful.
It is.
That is a generational impact that I am honored to play a very small role in. And it kind of goes back to, we called it Love Your Story because I was in a process as a mom, which we're all in this process until we die. When life has handed you lemons.
Are we going to sing Forrest Frank?
I know, should we? But a lot of times we're taught, when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. Okay. But what if life has handed you so much and you have so much lemonade stored up, you don't know what to do with it? You're called to share it.
Yeah.
We can share the lemonade. And so it's like one of those things where it's like, I never thought 8 years ago when I had 3 babies on life support, I'd be sharing some lemonade. I honestly just thought, I'm never going to do anything with these lemons. And here we are. We're like squeezing the heck out of these things, And I'm so thankful that I'm on this process of learning how to love my story, and that's what we kind of challenge, sit down with every family that we host of, how can you be a person, no matter what, you can love your story. What does that look like?
That's beautiful. I know we repost a lot of these things. You've done some things for moms in our community that they can meet with other moms.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about that and all the community that you've built, that's not even for those that are traveling outside, but locally here, if you have a child, I don't want to say spectrum. I want to say like in the wide world, you need to learn how to love your story. You get to come to these things. So
correct. So Rachael, when I started Love Your Story, and obviously Molly's house is hosting families traveling into Hall County, a lot of local moms that I sat down with coffee who have kids impacted by disabilities, medical needs, they're like, but what about us? What about us? And I was like, what about you? And they're like, help us. And I was like, okay, I hear you. And so last year in 2025, we started a program that we call Care Like a Mother.
I love it.
And it's a care cohort, and it's truly designed. It's a free morning. We do offer certified childcare, which means we have PT, OTs, and a nurse in the room, free childcare. And we have 197 moms in our care cohort. Most of the events will have around 50 moms that actually come to the events. And we meet once a quarter, and it is a time for you as a mom. It is not talking about disability resources. It is not talking about Katie Beckett. It is not talking about IEPs. That's about your kid.
Yeah.
And as moms, even if you have all typical kids or a kid with a disability, it is hard to get in a room and not talk about your kids.
Yeah.
This is a time to get in the room and ask yourself questions. What do I like about myself? A lot of moms cannot answer that question. What is something that I have found new about myself this week? What's a hobby that I have? And all of these questions, we really kind of give them space to answer. And our goal is 2 things. Number 1, that nobody in North Georgia would caregive alone. That's the goal. And number 2, how can we be moms that are equipped for the long haul?
Right.
Because we get so short-sighted of the next IEP, the next appointment, the next scan, the next da-da-da-da-da, that we're not thinking about ourselves. Where am I going to be in 18 years?
That's so wise of you to think. Forecasting is something that I think moms just uniquely have to do. And very often we don't do it for ourselves because we're so in the weeds.
Right.
I know that you are working towards having something for dads.
Yes.
So why don't you, we love the dads too. We need you dads.
We love the dads. So, with a nonprofit comes funding, and
Yes.
so you want to make sure that when you start a program, it's sustainable.
That's good. And also in real business too.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. And so just because you have an idea doesn't mean it's time to act on it. So we were very thankful that we got to get 1 year of Care Like a Mother under our belt in the dads, which is called Carry Like a Father. And it will start June 13th, and it launches. And we've partnered with Decoy, which is like a eater-tainery in Hall County. And the dads will get to play like duck pin bowling and mini golf, and they're going to do trivia. And we have 5 dads. Like the dads kind of looked at me and they're like, oh, are you going to come run this? No, I'm a mom.
Yeah.
Right? No dads. This is you. And so we have 5 local dads that have kind of jumped in and already started planning this. And so
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're excited.
You guys have a lot of good stuff going on. I got to come to your fundraiser
Yes.
and hear how awesome you sing, as well as so many others.
Thank you.
Your husband was the sneak attack. He's actually very talented.
People still come up to me and they're like, your husband loves you a lot, right? And I was like, yes, he sang High School Musical on stage in a Zac Efron wig. And he is not like an up in front people person naturally, like me. I'm like, grab me a mic. I love it, and so I'm like, yes, I know he deeply loves me. I do know that.
Yeah, I love that you guys love each other and you support each other so well.
Yes.
That's a cool thing to carry with. In our space, what we see is a lot of marriages don't end up making it. They end up having just unreconcilable differences because in the middle of it is really complex decision making. It's not just caring for children. It's figuring out how you're going to pay for it. Who's going to do what treatment, and how are you going to divide the labor? And there's no even division.
There's no even division. And then you have a spouse that grieves differently than you grieve. Everybody grieves differently. And so even though our kids are alive and we brought them home, there is a grief story that is there. There is a mourning of maybe what Ryan and I thought, that our family would look like, grieving for some things that our kids don't know they'll miss out on, but we know they miss out on. So that's even more of our story of like rewriting that, not putting it on them. But when you have people who are grieving differently, you're in the midst of tragedy, you're making truly life and death decisions, trying to make those together. It's a recipe for disaster, and talk about how the community came around us. I mean, we were warned very quickly in our NICU journey of like, this ends marriages.
Yeah.
This ends marriages. And somebody from our church was like, we don't want that to be your story. We're going to pay for you to have center point counseling for a year for marriage counseling. And we said,
okay.
Yes. And it quickly became a safe place for us to go and talk through. Even my parents, who we love, and I talk to my parents every day, and they were down in the NICU every single day. They don't even still know some of the decisions we had to make because I don't, number one, want that burden on them. And number two, I don't want it to make them look at our kids any different, or Ryan and I even different. So it really gave us a safe space to really dive into some of those things. And we've continued individual counseling and then some marriage counseling. There's no arrival of marriage, just like there's no arrival in motherhood. But one thing I do know is that Ryan and I have truly come out of this on the other side, truly seeing each other, seeing each other at our worst and still choosing each other. And I can't think of a better way to move forward with a spouse.
No, and at the event, I just loved watching the both of you support one another in your strengths and talk about some exciting new things for Love Your Story. I don't know if you didn't get to come to the event, you should definitely come this coming year.
Yeah, October 2nd at the Boot Barn. It's really fun.
It is a ton of fun, and hopefully we'll see more wigs. But the exciting news about Love Your Story, about where you guys are taking territory for the future.
Yeah. So, Molly's house is fantastic, but it's 1,000 square foot home that is built in the 1950s. It's not fully wheelchair accessible. We have to be honest with families about that, especially with the bathroom. And 85% of the families we serve have a child in a wheelchair. So Molly's house is great, but it's actually not what we need. And so we have started a capital campaign. If you go on our website or social media, you're not going to see anything about our capital campaign. But we do talk about it. But we are raising $2.3 million right now. We hit our first big milestone of $1.5 million. And we are building a fully universal design home. That's 2,800 square feet. And it will be able to host, Rachael, 2 families at a time, which then actually meets the mission of Love Your Story, creating that space of belonging amidst communities, right? Because that's where my first light bulb yes moment came that changed my life, of staying in an Airbnb with somebody. And that's what we're going to be able to offer families moving forward. And so we're so excited. So we technically broke ground last Friday. We're logging and all of the things. So we hope at our October 2nd event, we're like revealing walls and all of the things. It's super exciting, and we can't wait to see how it expands Love Your Story. So
I'm so proud of you guys. Thanks. You're doing great work. I
Thanks.
don't want to transition too hard, but because I have you here, I want to
Mhm.
hear some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Are you a book or a podcast kind of person?
Book, but I do have one podcast I don't miss a single episode on.
Which one?
Good Hang with Amy Poehler.
All right. Good to hear.
It is Life is Too Hard Not to Laugh. It will be the best 45 minutes of your week. You're not going to learn anything. You're not going to have a personal growth experience because that's not all the time what we need to do. Good Hang, you are going to laugh your butt off, though.
All right. So then what book are you reading right now?
Oh, gosh. I read all things. I think the best book I just finished was The Frozen River about a woman she's a midwife in the turn of the century. It's great. It's a great book.
All right. I love it. Good recommendations.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I wanted to know, because we talked about meals, a lot of
Yeah,
meals.
a lot of meals.
What's your favorite go-to meal to make for your family? And then what is your favorite go-to meal that you send to people when they need a little love?
Okay, my go-to meal to make for our family, we're big beef people. I've mentioned Hopewell Farms already once. I'm going to mention them a second time. Their steaks and their pork chops are like our top meals for what we do, and just grilled vegetables and maybe some like potatoes on the side. Nothing fancy. When I personally, as Abigail Burle, am providing a meal for like a family who just had a baby, something like that, my go-to, and everyone always ends up being like, thank you. My go-to is breakfast food. Because nobody brings breakfast food. And so I'll bring like a casserole they can put in the freezer, and then I'll bring like individual cups of yogurt and bars, and some fruit. And that's my go-to.
That's a good hack.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you guys have really built rhythms in your family.
Mm-hmm.
What is one rhythm that just is so relaxing that you guys do as the Burle family?
Ooh, that's a good question. I tell people all the time, I like going home. I like spending time with my family. I think the two things that we do as a family that has set us up very well with rhythms of now 2 parents that work and 3 kids with all different needs is we have a Sunday family meeting. And it might only last 5 minutes, might last 15 minutes. And we talk about what's one thing from the weekend that we loved all doing together. We talk about what's one thing that we're excited to all do together this coming week. And then we just kind of go through our week and talk about bullet points of like, this is when mommy's picking you up. This is when daddy's picking you up. This is when grandparents picking you up. This is, so to give them a little something to look forward to, something to look back on. That's something we do every Sunday. And then every Friday night we spend as a family. And so that might be that. And that's our order in. That's the only time we do like fast food or something like that. So Fridays, we order in, might be pizza, Chick-fil-A, whatever. And then we either watch a movie as a family, play a game as a family. We let the triplets vote. And we have like little things in a hat where we pull out because they're, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, they're all different, Rachel. They all have very different
I was going to
interests.
ask, are there any alliances that they team up against one, or with 3, it would be tough?
Okay, I also tell this to our kids, so I'm not saying anything I would not say. So they are all fraternal, but Maggie and Max have a very special bond. So, and they have the same blood type. So we think they are fraternal twins, and then we call Miller the third egg. He just somehow popped in there and just makes the party, just is a little sprinkle on top of the situation. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, Maggie and Max definitely have a little bond.
Okay, so we're going to pick things out of a hat to make sure.
We have to pick things out of a hat to make sure everybody is
Another good life hack.
Yeah,
I love it.
And at the end of the life hack, guess what? Parents are in charge.
Exactly. We have authority.
Yes.
We need to take it.
We have authority. So if I say we're not watching that movie, we're not watching that movie.
Exactly. This has been such a great podcast. Something that we do is we typically take a moment, especially those who believe in prayer, to pray for the person on the other side of it, because we don't think anything happens by chance. That if you're listening to this podcast, you needed it. And we'd hope that you would have an opportunity to pray for them, encourage them, and we could just bless them, and then I'll close us.
Okay. Whoever is listening to this, I need you to know that your story is not a tragedy. That you are not holding a story that was written to burden you. You are not experiencing what you're experiencing to be alone. If you feel right now that you're experiencing loneliness, you're experiencing grief and sadness and just so many questions that you feel stuck and you cannot move forward. My prayer is that you would just open your hands and you would truly say, I want to be able to love my story. Help me be a person that loves my story. And as Christ followers, we truly believe in the power of prayer, and we believe that God will intercede on your behalf of that request. But not only that you might have to have eyes to see the people that are coming around you to help you rewrite the script in loving your story.
Thank you, Abby, for sharing that. And if you are needing community or want to know more about Love Your Story, would you please click on this description box? My producer and amazing marketing coordinator, Lane Johnson, is going to link all of these amazing things. And as we close out, Alliance is definitely going to do $100. And we are asking, if you listen to this podcast and you are encouraged, would you please send $100 to Love Your Story? Because $20,000 can be done with many hands. So thank you, Abby, for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you in real life.
Yeah.
Were you inspired or challenged today? If so, connect with us. Follow the links in the description box below. We want to hear from you. Until next time, thanks for listening to the Alliance Goal Digger podcast.